line. Key, I got to start with you here. Goff's numbers were quite something. 39 for 51 for 376, 3 touchdowns. Cooper Kupp, 11 catches. Robert Woods, 10 catches. They combined for 275 yards receiving. And you want to say Tom Brady's got the pass-catching weapons, but when you look at it, they just had enough in a game that you think they should have dominated.
Well, I thought they probably could have won this game by 17 points. When you look at it, there's a missed field goal there. You take away a couple other opportunities that they had to score points on. But you also look at how the game was called. A couple questionable pass interference calls, as far as I could tell, on Mike Evans and Jalen Ramsey. It was just kind of one of those deals where I'm like, okay, can they somehow slow this thing down? But when you go back and you look at it, I've always felt like the Rams were a pretty good football team in its own right. I mean, they took care of business against Seattle, and I had them actually winning the AFC West. I know a lot of people liked Arizona because Arizona started to play well, or even Seattle for that matter. I think Seattle's a playoff team, but I felt like the Rams is sneaky good. They kind of low-key good, kind of know what to do. They've been there before. They got a bunch of veteran players that was on that Super Bowl team, and they got a young coach in Sean McVay who knows how to coach, and I think that is key. You put in a game plan to take advantage of the secondary of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but you also put a game plan in defensively to go and get Tom Brady, to make Tom Brady basically just a quarterback in the National Football League and not the GOAT. And you saw that last night, a couple interceptions by Brady. I know people were questioning whether or not his arm got hit over the middle that he was trying to go to Godwin on, but that was clearly a throw and not someone hitting his arm. Or you talk about the late interception on the 2-minute drive to seal the game for the Rams.
Jay, what do you think?
Hey, Key, I would say this when I look at this team, like, this is a team that could actually win a Super Bowl. I know you said that the first opening couple of weeks of our show. And, I was always questioning the consistency of Jared Goff. Now, he threw 2 picks last night, but still, I agree with you. They should have dominated that game. And look at the way things are going to play out. This team, their last 6 remaining games are all on the West Coast, okay? And if you talk about the way Cooper Kupp and the way Woods play, I mean, Cooper Kupp is one of the most underrated wide receivers there is in the National Football League. Devontae Adams even said it last night via Twitter. Just look at the yards he's able to gain after a catch. I mean, he's number 2 in the league with yards after the catch. So if they're able to play that way, their defense is formidable. We talked about that. And the way their games pan out, I mean, look at the rest of their schedule. You talk about they played at 49ers, at Cardinals, Patriots, Jets, Seahawks, and then Cardinals again. Granted, you see the same team twice in the Cardinals, but we don't know how Kyler Murray's doing with that shoulder. I mean, they're in striking position in the NFC that is wide open, it just feels like. Absolutely wide open.
It certainly is wide open, Jay, and I think when you look at it, outside of the Saints, the Rams are right there. If the Saints have any sort of hiccup, the Rams can slide themselves into that number 1 bye spot, something that, I don't know if it's this year because of the way things have played out throughout the course of the year with everything in the pandemic, that the home field is really all that important, because some stadiums, some cities, some towns don't have fans in their stadium. So you get the benefit of the doubt by not, pretty much going to a stadium with home field advantage with a loud noise and a loud crowd. I would say this, though. The Bucs, for all that was made up about what Tampa Bay is, Zubin, it's just a bunch of names. That's the way I look at it. The Gronkowskis, the Browns, the Evanses, the Bradys, the Fournettes, the Joneses, the Chris Godwins, the O.J. Howards when he was there. It certainly hasn't turned out to be what we thought it was based on what people expectations were at the beginning of the year.
A couple of numbers for you, Key, to back that up, and you've been saying this for weeks, so let's talk about it just in bits, in pieces. The Bucs right now drop to 7-4. They're still in clear position to make the playoffs, but it gets a little bit dicey if they were to lose Sunday, because they have Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs coming to town, and after what we saw from the Chiefs Sunday night and what we saw from the Bucs on Monday night, I don't think it's unreasonable to think the Bucs would fall to 7-5. Then it starts to get a little bit murky. But the one thing that you said, Key, last night, and you've been saying all season long, is Tom Brady is just like anybody else. Despite how great he is, he's just like anybody else when he feels the pressure. 2 for 8 for 17 yards last night when pressured. There was a stat in the fourth quarter when the game was hanging in the balance and Steve and Brian and Lou were calling the game. It said Brady pressured 0 for 6 He finished 2 for 8 for 17 yards under pressure. Something you've said, despite how great he is, when you get him up the middle, he reacts like every other quarterback.
Well, I think that's the key because he can't get out on the perimeter. So if you're pushing the pocket with Aaron Donald and those guys, and Brockers is doing his job on the end, it's like, well, where do I go? I've got to stand here and I got to stand tall in the pocket and try and deliver the football. If you just look over the course of Brady's wonderful Hall of Fame first ballot, in fact, it won't even be a first ballot. It'll be as soon as I retire, I'm in there the next day, Hall of Fame. You look at that, the teams that he traditionally have lost to, what was it that they've had? They've had pass rush. Whether it was the Baltimore Ravens, whether it was the Kansas City Chiefs, whether it was the New York Jets, those teams, the Giants, when they won those games, they got after him. And that's the recipe, is you've got to create havoc for him and make him uncomfortable in the pocket. He was getting the ball out so fast last night. I'm like, Tom, you got to let the receiver turn his head so he knows that the ball is coming. You just, as soon as it's like, hike, oh, here, you take it. I don't want it anymore. Because the pressure had started to get to him. And so he started thinking about that, and you could clearly tell if you were watching the game.
And Jay, what do you make of Brady's performance last night? We've kind of talked about it, having an uneven performance. Remember, they got embarrassed on a Thursday night, the 4-down debacle. They got embarrassed on a Sunday night. You could argue that was the worst loss of Brady's career when the Saints shellacked him and swept the season series. And he struggles on a Monday night. He's used to being so great on the biggest of stages.
I mean, Zubin, this is supposed to be Tom versus time. And I feel like Father Time is definitely winning. And I agree with Key. Look, when his offensive line can protect him, he has time in the pocket. He's able to hit targets like Mike Evans. But obviously, when he targets Antonio Brown 13 times, those are quick passes. He's trying to get the ball out. And Key, I would come back and ask you, look, he was 1-9 last night in passes that were plus 15 yards, right? So is it safe to say, like, Tom Brady, and not that he was ever malleable in the pocket and can move, but still with time and him being the age he is, it just doesn't seem, if you play against a formidable defense, if you can pressure him, they're off their game. Like, they're not even close to a Super Bowl contender, it feels like.
Well, here's what I would say about Tom is if you give him time, he's going to completely shred you. And that's most great quarterbacks. That's what they're going to do. But the moment that there's a little bit of heat around him, he's not comfortable. This is a totally new environment, situation, circumstances. You could certainly tell one of the things that he's comfortable with is trying to find Gronkowski. Another thing he's comfortable with is trying to find Antonio Brown. And so over time, I think he'll get better at it. I just don't think it'll be this year. I think if you look into the future toward next year, I think you'll see a much better Tom Brady a second time around in Byron Leftwich's offense.
There's no doubt about it. So this morning we're asking on the Dr. Pepper Twitter feed, who's the one team the Saints don't want to face in the playoffs? Yesterday our question was, who's the one team the Chiefs don't want to play? And it seemed like the overwhelming answer was the Steelers. But this morning we're asking you, who do the Saints want to avoid? We're asking you that because at this particular point, the Saints sit in the number one spot in the NFC. Oh, by the way, right behind them are the surging 7-3 Rams. Maybe that's your answer. Maybe it's Green Bay. Maybe it's Seattle. Maybe it's somebody else. Maybe it's still the Bucs. Be a part of the Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin Nation on the Dr. Pepper Twitter.